Look at that. Nice.
So today we're going to make some beef stir fry. Basically, I wanted to make this black bean paste beef stuff, but after looking at every store I know of that might have it, they didn't have it. So I guess that's hard to find right now. Sad. So basically it's just going to be green onions, a yellow onion, and beef. I got this shaved beef stuff. You don't have to get that, but I'm lazy and didn't want to cut it into tiny pieces so that I can like slice into 3 sections and then it takes care of the rest. I don't have exact measurements on this stuff because I just kind of wing it, but according to the bag, this is 6 ounces of green onions and that looks about right. So I'll give them a rinse here. And the other ingredients you need, we're going to use some black pepper just to kind of spice it up a little bit. I got dark and light soy sauce. I like to make my own mix. You can use regular stuff, the Kiko Man or whatever it is. Some fish sauce, oyster sauce, and rice wine. You can get all that at like a Vietnamese store or something. You can find some of it at your normal grocery store. You'll at least find the fish sauce, normal soy sauce, and cooking wine. But if you want to get like light and dark, you might have to go to the Asian store. They might have oyster sauce, but I had to go to the Asian store to find it. I'm also going to use some ginger and some garlic. And I know, pre-cut, but I'm lazy. So we used some butter just to lube up the pan, mostly because I'm trying to avoid canola oil and stuff like that right now. So with these green onions, I'm going to cut off the bottoms. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just get those bottoms off of there because nobody wants these weird root things in food. And for these guys, what we'll do is we're going to slice them on kind of a diagonal. It'll make it look fancy. We won't go all the way to the ends, but we'll use most of the onion. So the first few, you can do kind of that number, but then start rotating the knife a little bit. And then kind of angling it. And we have these cool diagonal cuts, which I don't know why, but when I go to the Asian place for something like this, they always seem to cut it that way, and I always like it, so I just do it that way. All right. Well, it's not perfect. If you see any parts that look funny, just pull them out, you know? It's not an exact science here. Then set those to the side, because now we got to chop the other onion. Luckily I have a clean counter, you know, so I can pull these pieces off. That one's funky looking. All right, there we go. So, got a bunch of green onion there. Now here's my regular onion. And there's a trick to these. So cut it in half like this, okay? That way you have the root still here, right? Okay, then you can peel it a little easier. And also if you cut off on the other end, okay? So now I've got real easy access. So the root's still there holding it all together, all right? And then peeling's pretty easy. Sometimes it's a little challenging to get that layer off, but there we go, and that's what we got. Same thing on this side. And peel. Sometimes you got to take off a pretty thick layer on the outside. And I always feel bad when I do that, just because it's using a lot of onion. But then sometimes you get lucky and the outer layer is pretty thin. Okay, and so that's what that looks like. We'll toss the skin. I'll rinse this off just to get any of the little goobery things out of here. So for this particular dish, I kind of want bigger onion pieces. So I'm just gonna cut them about 1 inch like that. And at the end, so now I've finally cut off the root. Do the same thing to the other one. Might be closer to 3/4 inches, I don't know. Okay, so just 3 cuts that way, 3 cuts this way. Okay, those aren't super great knife skills that I'm showing you. So maybe we'll have a video on proper knife skills later. Okay, throw those over there. And I can just leave those on the cutting board now because I'm not doing any more cutting. And next up, we want to prepare the sauce because once we start cooking the stir fry, it might go pretty quick. So it's all about ratios. It's not about exact measurements. So for cooking, you usually use the dark soy sauce for the cooking and the light soy sauce for the garnish, but it's actually a little better with a mix. So for the dark, this bottle's almost out. Well, I guess we're gonna use another bottle today because I've got more in the cabinet. So I use about 2 or 3 spoonfuls of this. We'll be right back. So, there's one more and one more. So that's like 2.5. And this stuff is thick, guys. It's like motor oil. Look at how it's sticking on the spoon. And then I'll just use like 1 of these to kind of thin it out a little bit. I kind of stumbled upon this when I was trying to figure out how to make stir fry, but actually make it well. So cooking wine, you can also use rice wine vinegar. Just put about a spoonful of that in there. Maybe a little more sometimes, it just depends. Kind of adds a little bit of tartness, thins it out a little bit. The oyster sauce, you do not need much of this stuff, okay? It's kind of sticky, it's kind of gloopy. So I maybe do a half, maybe even 1/3 of a spoon of it, okay? That's probably more like 1/4. And then fish sauce, be careful with this guy. He's very pungent, okay? Just 1 shake in there. Since we're gonna add some other stuff for the black pepper, you know, we're gonna be pretty liberal with it, okay? And garlic, I'm gonna put a pretty good amount in here. It says that a 1/2 teaspoon is a clove. A spoon, I don't know. That's probably like 3 cloves worth. Who knows? It's a lot. I like garlic. And then ginger. Not exactly sure how much the equivalence is on this, but I'll do about a teaspoon of this ground ginger stuff, which, does it say? I don't know, it doesn't really say the equivalence. You would want more if you're using dry, probably. All right, so stir this up a little bit. Get that all mixed together. Oyster sauce especially is you're gonna wanna stir it so that it doesn't be like this one big gloop in there. Okay. So next up, we're gonna preheat the pan. Stir fries you cook on high heat. You can use a wok, but usually we don't have wok heater, like the wok burners in this country, so it doesn't quite get to the heat, and you can't use it right. Because the whole point is to have cold zones and hot zones in a wok. So you use about 2 tablespoons of butter. Everybody likes butter. And I think they say it's healthy for you again. I don't know. Can't keep track. The beef and the onion are probably going to take about the same amount of time to cook because it's pretty thinly sliced beef. And for this one, you know, you're not trying to cook the beef to be rare or anything. You're just trying to cook it through because it is so thin. So it's all surfaces that have been touched by industrial equipment. So you need to cook it. Okay, so this is this thinly sliced stuff. You can use this for like a Chicago beef sandwich or something. Maybe I'll figure out how to make those one day. That'd be awesome. So I'm just gonna kind of cut through this big old pile, so they're not big long strips. So now I've got pieces like this. It's probably not quite the right cut, but we'll make it work. So now we've got a nice hot pan here. I'm gonna put the onions in first. So I'm using tongs. I almost always use tongs. They'll break up a little bit as they cook. You could have done that before when you cut them. It's kind of up to you. If you didn't notice the cores in like I didn't, then you can take those out. Might be a little hot, but it'll be all right. Okay. So I'm gonna let those cook for a minute. So use high heat, otherwise it's going to stew them, well, it's not going to saute them. You want saute, okay? And if they're not coming apart too easily, give them a little bit of help, So you want them to start getting that, a little bit of brown to them. Hopefully you can tell on there, okay? Once they start getting a little bit of brown, we put the meat in. Okay. It's a lot of meat. I think the package said it was about a pound, a little bit more. And use the tongs to break it up a little bit. Okay. Yeah, we're still on high. Notice. Okay. At this point, you start moving it around more. Use that beef to get that in there and get cooked. Okay. The sauce will help us with that a little bit later. Alright. Starting to get a little bit of brown on the beef. Tells me it's getting pretty close. Time for these. These are going to be the last to go in. I'm actually going to put the sauce in before I put the green onions. One of the things that helps you keep a cleaner kitchen is if you clean as you go. So if you're cleaning up little bits as you cook, you use those down times instead of just sitting there and watching the pan. You're cleaning the kitchen or doing something, and it can really help to make the cleanup easier later. This is smelling great. Onions and butter and beef, it doesn't get a whole lot better than that. Okay. Now usually you would want to cook some rice with this, but I'm trying to avoid carbs. Maybe one of these days I'll make fried rice for you. Step one is cook rice. I got this book from Julia Childs. Has a great way to do rice. It comes out almost perfect every time. Okay. All right, beef's getting pretty cooked. Still some pink, still some red even, but that's okay. So now we'll put in sauce, like I said, losing track of what I'm doing. Yeah. It's thick. If you look, it's starting to get the beef and all the onions, and changing color. Oh yeah, it's because of the dark soy sauce. It's real thick. It'll get them all colored for you. A nice kind of fun soy sauce color. All right, now it's time for these guys. So. Alright, and I will be right back with a washcloth. Okay. If you know how to flip the pan, this is a fun time to flip the pan if you can keep it all in there. It's kind of a test of skill, you know. But today, I'm just trying to cook, not trying to show off. So see how the beef is pretty much cooked at this point. You know, if we pull it apart, we're good. All right. Stir it around a little bit. Soak up some more of that sauce into there. If you like a little softer onions, you'll want to cook the onions actually a little longer when you're making this than I did. That'll soften them up some more. I kind of like them to have a little bit of a crunch left to them. So, pretty much done at this point. Stir fry goes real quick once you start cooking. That's why you got to get all your prep work done first. So if you look, the sauce is still down there, okay? So we're going to try and get most of that to boil off and to stay, the liquid to boil off and the deliciousness to stay in the food. And that's when we'll be done, okay? Because on this dish, the tenderness in the beef comes from the fact that you cut it really thin, not the fact that you don't cook it. It's the main two ways you get a nice tender piece of beef is you have a good piece of beef and you don't cook it too much, or you have a good piece of beef and you cut it real thin. I guess the other way is you cook it very, very long, so like a roast or something. All right, so see, most of the sauce is gone now, so we're done cooking. All right. So like I said, normally I'd put this with rice, but I'm trying to avoid carbs today. So that looks about like 2 servings. So cut it in half in my pan and just onto the plate. And that smells nice. If you don't like onions, this maybe isn't the dish for you, but you could maybe try putting leeks in instead of the yellow onions, which would have a similar but not as strong flavor. You could also put carrots in this. They would go in with the onions, like shredded carrots, to kind of add a little bit of different flavor profile to it. But that's your basic stir fry there. This one's a beef and onion one, but yeah, you can play with the vegetables in all sorts of ways. All right, thanks. Good to see you guys. Have a great day.